This meeting is now being recorded.
Great. So this is a chance if you want to revisit listening to any part of the webinar later. I'll send out a link to it later with how you can access that. It takes a few days for it to become available sometimes. Also, if you have any colleagues or anyone else who wasn't able to join in today, this is another way for them to listen to the webinar if they weren't able to join us this afternoon. You may also have noticed that you are on mute. We just went ahead and did that so that in case you're taking notes and you're typing, that there's not outside noise affecting anything. If you have any problems connecting to Global Meet, to our webinar software, or you experience any problems during the webinar, please send me an email so that we can hopefully get it fixed for you in the moment, but also to troubleshoot any future issues that you might have. Everyone should be seeing a tree at the moment. When we start the presentations, you'll see those slides instead. Since you are mute, and to avoid problems with people talking over each other, what we're going to suggest that you do is if you have a question, you can either wait until the end of the presentation or you can type it during the presentation so you don't forget. You should see some chat bubbles with the letters Q and A underneath them, and that's what you can use to type a question in there. You can make that a private question, you can make it public. Courtney Cameron from Seattle Housing Authority will be helping me facilitate today, and she'll be managing the questions. So feel free to either make that public or private, and we will make sure that the presenters know those questions so they can answer them for you. Our next webinar will be on January 20th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you remember, all of our webinars are now the second to last Tuesday of the month at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and right now we're sort of set up on an every other month schedule. So the next one is January 20th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be discussing out-of-school learning time opportunities, so after-school programming, summer programming, winter break programming. If you are interested in presenting, please email Courtney or I. We would love to connect with you, and we are looking for about 2 presenters for that topic. So please do connect with us if you're interested. Courtney, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Nope, I think that sounds great. We would be really excited to hear from different housing authorities that have thought about what programming they're going to have over the summer, or if there's a partnership they have with a particular organization that would be interesting to highlight, that would also, I think, be helpful to this group. So if somebody's working with a partner that's done really great programming within housing, I think that would be totally appropriate and informative for the group. So feel free to email Abra or myself, and we'll get you scheduled.
Great. Okay. So, Courtney, I don't know if you want to go ahead and introduce Cambridge Housing Authority.
Sure. So our 2 presentations today are, the first one will be from Cambridge Housing Authority, and the second will be from Atlanta Housing Authority. So John and Cam will be presenting from Cambridge Housing Authority, and their presentation will be about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we're going to take questions. If you have questions during their presentation, please use the Global Meet and send those questions, as Abra said, either privately or publicly. At the end of their presentation, then we will go back and ask the questions that were posed. So feel free to do that, or if you have a question that you'd like to follow up on later, we'd be happy to send out the email addresses of our presenters, or you can go back and watch the webinar if that's helpful to you. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with John and Cam from Cambridge.
All right, thank you, Courtney.
Sure.
It's a pleasure to join all of you this afternoon for a discussion of college and post-secondary opportunities. I'm John Lindamood, Deputy Director, that's Cam. I'm the Director of Resident Services for Cambridge Housing Authority, and I'm joined by my colleague Cam Ali, who's our Deputy Director. Cam oversees all of our youth initiatives, and he's agreed to share some in this presentation to talk about our workforce youth development program a little bit later. Our goal in this presentation is to share information on two of our efforts to position students for post-secondary success. The first is the workforce, which is our comprehensive, long-running youth development program for teens. And the second is our College Success Initiative, which is a citywide effort to increase the college completion rate of low-income, first-generation, and predominantly minority students who are residents of Cambridge. And before we get into drilling down a little bit deeper into those two programs, we thought that it would be good to provide a little context about the larger efforts that we're making in resident services, and to kind of contextually situate the workforce and the College Success Initiative and what we're doing here in Cambridge. So the next couple of slides before Cam introduces the workforce program detail what we've tried to build over the last number of years. The general philosophy for us has been to build a continuum of services that covers the full life cycle of our residents. So as you can see in this slide, at the top bar, we've kind of divided up the life cycle into a number of different age parameters, and we've laid out a lot of the programs that we do in-house or in partnership with other agencies in the city. And in those partnerships, we provide different kinds of resources. Some of it's financial, some of it is informational, outreach support, but the two major ones that we do in-house are centered right in the middle here, the workforce and a program that we unfortunately don't have time to talk about today, which is This Way Ahead program. It's a very unique collaboration that we have with Gap Incorporated, the clothing store. It's a job training and retail internship program for low-income teens, and that we're very excited about. That's been in operation for 2 years. So the major in-house effort, though, the bread and butter really of our operation is the workforce program. And as Cam will indicate later, all three of the workforce sites that we have in the major developments also have very large computer centers, and those kind of serve as epicenters for a lot of our programming with youth, but also tangentially for a lot of our programs that deal with early childhood all the way up through adult services. So by extension from the last slide, what we wanted to represent here was the estimated percentage of residents that we serve in each of these kind of age parameter groupings. And there's a lot of information here, but as an experiment, as we're preparing for this, we decided that we wanted to break this down into percentages and get some raw numbers about the number of kids and youth and adults and elderly we are serving among the 10,000 some odd residents in Cambridge public housing. So really the accent here, as I mentioned in the first slide, is on early adolescence and adolescents with This Way Ahead in the workforce program. We have really pushed hard over the last several years to increase the numbers of students that we're able to work with up close to 40%. And we have a goal to try and hit 50 in the next couple of years. So with that brief introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Cam, who's going to talk about the workforce program, and then I'll join you guys back here in a few minutes and take over to talk about the College Success Initiative.
Hi folks, my name is Cam Molly. I'm the Deputy Director of Resident Services Department here at Cambridge Housing Authority, and I oversee, as John said, most of our youth programs, specifically the workforce program. I'll walk through the program overview, structure, goals, and our outcomes of the workforce program. We were founded, this is, as of January, we'll start our 31st year programming. And we were founded in 1984, mostly due to the fact that we had, that one public high school year had a large dropout rate, and that dropout rate was directly correlated to the residents that lived in Cambridge housing. And so because of that, we started what at that point was a revolutionary youth program, which was focusing on reducing the dropout rate and increasing the employment rate of youth living in public housing. Back then, it was mostly most of the youth programs were drop-in programs, recreational activity programs, and actually the place that we overtook for the program was just really that's all it was a drop-in program with a pool of people. So in 1984 we started that, and fairly quickly we were able to address the dropout issue, and over time, having mastered the fact that all of our kids were graduating high school, we started looking at what happens after they graduate high school and where are they going, where does it make sense for them to go, and we eventually transitioned to almost a post-secondary prep program. We are, as John said, in 3 of our largest family housing developments, and about 3.5 years ago, we opened a site at the local high school, which is the Cambridge Latin School, which had been a goal for almost a decade of doing, and it was perfect timing when the high school renovated, and there was space for us, and we moved in with them. And not only are we in there, but as I'll talk later, we collaborate very closely with the public school system and the charter school system in Cambridge. Currently, we serve about 200 youth. That means that each site has about 50 youth that are being served on a daily basis. Let me go. All right. The model of the program is a 5-year model. So we recruit our students in the 8th grade and work with them all the way through 12th grade with the goal of helping them transition from 8th grade to high school and from high school to a successful post-secondary. And that really varies for most of our kids, for all of our kids. Majority of them end up going to 4-year and 2-year schools. But there's a good number of them that end up in trade schools, gap year programs such as Year Up or City Year, or go straight into employment, which is a smaller number. As I said, we have 50 students at each site, and we have 2 staff people at each site, a full-time teacher counselor and a part-time homework learning center coordinator. The structure is so that kids, because we started as an unemployment prevention program, we sell this to kids as a job. It's a pre-employment program to some extent. And so kids come in, they get paid for their workshop, and they are expected to present themselves as if they're at work. They also have an hour of homework, mandatory homework that they have to do a week. Majority of them do more than that. Each site, as John said, has a computer lab, and then we have a homework center and a classroom. Most kids, when they get a call from a friend or they tell a friend where they're going to work. That's what they call it. It's called the workforce. And each kid comes in at least one afternoon a week for their workshop. So 9th graders come in on Monday, 10th graders on Tuesday, and so on, with 8th graders coming on Friday. The workshops are based on an in-house curriculum that really focuses on developing their life skills, job skills, and educational skills. In addition to teaching, our teacher counselors do some intensive case management. The case management really revolves around the students, how they're doing academically, emotionally, socially, employment-wise. We try to really look at all aspects of a youth. As I said, we work very closely with the schools. We get their report cards, progress reports. If they're on a special education plan, we get their IEPs. We meet on a regular basis with the high school personnel, middle school, and charter school personnel. Our teacher counselors are in constant communication with teachers and deans and guidance counselors. And we also engage our family really from the get-go with the 8th graders. And we have specific points where families are invited to come in. And we provide services for families. We provide tax prep, free financial education, And we also do a collaborative approach with the school, with the high school, where we have, during their 2 parent-teacher nights each year, we have our parents come half an hour earlier. We offer food. We offer their progress reports of their students. We offer translators. We take them to each classroom to sign up. So we provide a lot of intensive services to the families. And over the past 3 years, the number, when we started about 3 years ago, the number of family participants have grown immensely over the years. So this past year we had about 40 parents represented. In addition to the case management and classes, we offer exploratory jobs for our members. We have a full-time employment partnership coordinator that works with local Cambridge businesses to provide what we call the 14-week exploratory jobs. And they vary from entry-level jobs at after-school programs to more intensive jobs at retail or office jobs. And we pay for half of the salary, and the employer pays for the half the salary, and we ask the employer to act as a mentor. The Match College Savings Account is something that we started just last year. And it is starting in the 10th grade of their high school year. We ask families and students to start saving in a deposit-only account at a local bank. And Cambridge Housing Authority will match it dollar for dollar up to $1,000 for post-secondary expenses. So when a student leaves, graduates high school, the hope is that they have $2,000 to put towards post-secondary expenses. So that is a new program. We're just getting it going, and we are kind of looking at data from that this year. So our goals are, as I said, we're transitioning them from middle school to post-secondary. We want to really increase their educational life and job skills by both in the classroom and outside the classroom. We have tutoring as well. We have a lot of other components. We have a partnership with Boston College that we have students that come in and help in our homework center. As I said, we provide a web of support for students. So I've gone through most of these. And we really, we try to hit all aspects of a child's life. And since we have them for 5 years, we can really dive in deep in their lives and really get to know them well and their families. So far, these are our outcomes. As I said, we had a 100% high school graduation rate that's been in place for a long time. About 90 to 95% of our students matriculate in a 2 or 4 year college. Every few years we do a alumni study of our alums. And this past year, what we found was that between the last 2 alumni surveys, about half of our students have completed a college or post-secondary program in 6 years. Now, the national numbers and the Boston statistics are about a third of students complete, especially students from low-income backgrounds, complete college in 6 years. And we're seeing a stronger completion rate with the caveat that we're not just talking about college. We're talking about associate degrees. We're talking about trade schools as well. But we feel like that speaks highly to the programming that we do and the supports that we offer. And then also another exciting thing, because after all, the ultimate goal is to break the cycle of poverty. What we've been seeing is that that nearly 2/3 of our alumni report not living in public housing after 6 years. So I just got a note from Courtney that we'll take a couple of the questions now.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay. So we are having some questions about, we'll go with the first one. For the early education, does Cambridge pay partner agencies for any of their services, or they simply provide space and outreach? John, do you want to take that?
We have relationship with a number of our early childhood partners that predominantly are run through outreach and informational resources with the provision of financial support, although we have done that in the past. with Baby University, which is on the chart that we had as the first slide, and a couple of other initiatives. So it's been kind of hodgepodge. We have helped out financially in some situations when programs have been trying to launch. Some of them have, like many of us, experienced difficulty keeping funds rolling in, and so we've helped to supplement some of their funding. But I would say the bulk of that for early childhood is the provision of other kinds of resources. Staff time, lots of different means of outreach, and other means.
The other question was, how does college savings match what funds? Also, what funds pay for the staff for your youth workforce program?
Well, as Cam was saying, it's a one-to-one match. The funding briefly comes from a local foundation that we talked with a couple of years ago, and we're very fortunate to get a 3-year contract with them to launch the match savings program, and we meet with them annually to try and give them updates on how things are going, and our hope is obviously to sustain that for the long haul. And so all of the funding right now comes from that one foundation, but we're trying to reach out and see if we can come up with some other funding using the first foundation as leverage. And that's an ongoing effort because what we ultimately would like to do is to raise that match so that the students can save up to $1,500, and we match that one-to-one to make it $3,000 that they leave with. But as Cam was saying, we ask students to save from their jobs, and we also provide a very interesting series of monetized incentives that cover a broad range of performance areas in the program, and that's a whole nother discussion that we're happy to have offline or if folks have other questions. But we've been very excited about the results we've seen over the first year since launching that program.
What funds pay for staff?
Great.
So a question.
Yes. Oh, you can keep going through the rest of the presentation, and then we'll go through additional questions at the end.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thanks for all the great questions. So, to come to the second part of the presentation here, as Cam was saying, we've made a lot of headway in the past several years in the number of students that are leaving our program and graduating from college within 6 years. That's well above the national average. But this next initiative that we want to talk about really has its genesis in this particular problem as we saw it from several years ago after doing a couple of very large-scale alumni studies in which we found that our students were really struggling to procure degrees in a reasonable time period. And as we all know, this is a national issue, and students are have to carry inordinate debt. There are all sorts of issues about if they quit or drop out to work and then try and come back, the chances of them getting their degrees goes down considerably. So a couple of us in the city decided that we had to address this problem systemically. That this is much bigger than just one or two programs trying to make a difference. And that was kind of the beginnings of what we call the College Success Initiative. This is really a collaboration between community-based organizations, the Cambridge Public Schools, and institutions of higher learning, all of whom have come together to create a coordinated system to support students in their transition to college and careers. And we decided when we first started meeting, again, this was a handful of organizations, that we wanted to focus in two areas. We wanted to make sure that we were giving due attention to the access side of the equation and creating a very strong college-going culture for low-income students, but also obviously on the persistence side, and that we needed to systematically address all the various barriers that these students were experiencing to successful post-secondary completion. And so, briefly, I think the ultimate goal here was, as we were thinking forward in the process, 2 or 3 years down the road, we wanted to come up with a sequencing of tasks, events to make the case to the larger city, and specifically to city government, that we needed to have a unified effort to address this problem as a city. And so we came up with a sequence of 3 things listed here. The last 2, the creation of a citywide charter and the Office of College Success, which just recently was launched, we thought would be driven by the production of a citywide report that would drill down a little bit deeper and help to document some of the issues that we were confronting on this subject as a city. So my last 3 slides here details each of those 3 activities. The CSI report was quite an undertaking. We did this over the last 1.5 years. We hired a consultant to help us to do a number of surveys, to hold focus groups, to meet with youth and their programs, to meet with school personnel. It was very exhaustive and extensive, and I've listed a number of the agencies in the city that participated in that report. And subsequently, these are kind of the mainstays in our newly founded initiative. This isn't exhaustive, but this is kind of the core group that has been a part of the process over the last 2 years. So, the findings basically corroborated what most of us knew anecdotally. And those things are listed down here under key findings. But we weren't on the same page in terms of understanding what the key access and persistence indicators are all about. Folks had, by and large, very limited capacity to follow or track students after they left their respective programs. We didn't have, despite a close connection with the Cambridge Public Schools, a lot of quality student-level data to work with. And perhaps most importantly, we really confronted a lack of data sharing and saw that very clearly as we went through this process, that just how detrimental that was to our efforts to really pin down all the various issues that our students were confronting. Last but not least, the data was very clear that while some students were fairly well versed about colleges and how to promote quality access and to sustain their work once they got into college, there were a number of kids that, despite our best efforts, really were confused or had limited understanding, or even worse, basically misinformation about that whole process. So we used that report, which we sent out to many different sections of the community and to the city, to put together this past summer a charter. And the impetus behind doing so was that we wanted to make sure that we all knew how to play in the sandbox, essentially. and that we were sharing the same sets of goals and a common vision as a city, and that we were aware of what the roles and responsibilities would be of membership in this charter, and make sure that we were clarifying how we were going to make decisions and move forward. Pretty basic stuff. We have an advisory committee that's comprised of the original members plus a lot of new organizations that have signed on, and a steering committee that basically will help us to move forward and make decisions about where we want to go in the future. So most relevant about this slide is this list of collective impact and the benefits of participation, as we called it in the charter. And we wanted to make it clear to our founding members and to our new organizational members that there were many, many different benefits to being a part of this process. And obviously we were all looking for better student outcomes, but we found in the study that we had a lot of redundancy. We wanted to make things more efficient informationally. We wanted to build staff capacity, and as I mentioned before, we wanted to build a database that was accurate and gave us information with which to really make a difference in the lives of these young people. And lastly, as we've done in the workforce program for many different years, we wanted to bolster parental engagement in the process. So the last piece of this was the creation of an Office of College Success. This was really the thing that we had all been working for. And this past summer, the city, after getting the report out and talking to folks about the charter, agreed to pony up some money for a Office of College Success, which is going to be a citywide service delivery system. And we just concluded about a month ago the hire of a Office of College Success coordinator. And I wanted to conclude with this because we're very excited about where this is going to take us. And our hope is that, as is detailed in the bottom of this slide, that we can tackle these 4 areas generally as we move forward to create this coherent service delivery system for our students. So I'm going to end there and see if we have any other questions, and happy to chat for a couple minutes. I think we've gone on a little bit too long, but I will let Courtney and Aubrey let us know how we want to proceed.
Perfect. John and Kim, thank you so much for such a thoughtful presentation. I think you touched on a number of points that triggered questions for this group, some of which we were able to answer now and some of which we may need to come back to over email or a separate call, because some questions came up about agreements that you may have in place or may not have in place, and you touched a little bit on that. And then the other question around how you fund the work for the how you fund the salary costs for youth. So
sure.
We won't be able to answer those at the moment. We did see those come up in public chat, but we want to make sure Shean has time to provide his presentation with some questions. So please continue as you're listening to feel free to post questions in the public chat section. We'll answer as many as we can. And then those that we're not able to answer, this is a really great network to just follow up with people individually. So once again, John and Kim, thank you so much. Abra is getting Shean's presentation set up right now, and I will be able to introduce Shean Atkins from Atlanta Housing Authority. Shean, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
All right. Yeah, absolutely. We look forward to your presentation. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Courtney. Thanks, Abra. I'm going to talk about our post-secondary education initiative and give you some details on how we've structured that and some of our successes, and answer any of the questions that you may have. As Courtney has stated, this is Shean Atkins, and I'm the Vice President of External and Governmental Affairs and Corporate Communications for the Atlanta Housing Authority. And so you might be wondering, well, what are you doing working on the Post-Secondary Education Initiative? Well, when I first came to the Atlanta Housing Authority, I was the Director of Community Partnerships, and one of the things that I was charged with was to direct our scholarship program. When we went through business alignment, the agency thought that it was best if I kept that particular initiative for the agency, and so I'll talk about it today. Just to give you a bit of context, the Atlanta Housing Authority, as of June 30th, 2014, these are the numbers that we reported in our latest report to HUD. We're serving 21,680 households, and that equates to approximately 50,000 plus participants. And that's across a number of different programs. We are an MTW agency, and as you can see from the different buckets below, we only have a very small number of participants or small number of households that are a part of our AHA-owned residential communities. If you have been following anything about the Atlanta Housing Authority, we were the first major city to rid ourselves of our public housing projects because we believe that our program is really a mainstreaming program, and that's really the direction in which we've moved. One of the ways that we have been mainstreaming families is through the promotion of education. We believe that it is the great equalizer, and it is clearly in line with our vision here at the Atlanta Housing Authority. Our vision is healthy mixed-income communities and healthy self-sufficient families. And so education plays a critical role in preparing our participants for socioeconomic and social self-sufficiency. We created a partnership between the Atlanta Housing Authority and the United Negro College Fund. We signed our agreement in 2003, and we gave our first awards out in 2004. And so we thought that this would be an excellent way to partner for post-secondary success. We firmly believe that if we can provide stable housing opportunities in great living environments, then we should partner with an organization and a great brand that will assist us in providing this opportunity for post-secondary education for our participants, and we selected the United Negro College Fund. What we created is called the Atlanta Community Scholars Award, and what you will probably notice is that there is nowhere in the acronym or the name of the scholarship program that mentions the Atlanta Housing Authority. That was extremely important for us because we wanted to make sure that we were able to remove any stigma that many have about receiving housing assistance, and we didn't want kids to not apply because other kids would then know that they were a part of an AHA-assisted household or any of those things. So here is a brief description of the program. As I mentioned, it is a 2004 initiative between the Atlanta Housing Authority and UNCF, where UNCF serves as our fiscal agent. Scholarships are provided to eligible AHA-assisted participants between the ages of 16 and 30. We thought that that was extremely important because we also wanted to go back and reach participants who had either received a GED or had finished high school, and because of a number of reasons, they were not able to go on to post-secondary, so we took that age all the way up to 30. Participants are able to attend any college, university, or technical school of their choice. UNCF has about 30-plus member institutions. Our agreement with UNCF states that our participants and our scholars are not required to attend only UNCF schools. And of course, our goal is to encourage more of our participants to consider and pursue higher education. This is just an example of some of the colleges that our 2014 cohort of scholars are attending this year. And as you can see, it's really varied. So it's really a good mix of HBCUs and non-HBCUs, public institutions, private institutions, large schools, small schools, technical colleges, and community colleges. It really varies. So it can be a 4-year college or university or even a 2-year technical school or community college. One of the ways that we market and advertise our program is through our AHA newsletter. And so we've got a large distribution for our AHA newsletter. It is the way that we provide information to our participants and resources that are available through partnerships that we have at the Atlanta Housing Authority. We start to market our scholarship program in December, and we close the scholarship application process the end of February. In addition, we work in a huge way with our local school district, the Atlanta Public Schools. We work with their central office, the superintendent's office, as well as the counselors in all of the high schools to get the word out. We also have, at the Atlanta Housing Authority, a service provider network. And in the service provider network, we have probably close to 80 or 90 organizations that have agreed to partner with the Atlanta Housing Authority to provide a number of services and resources. So we also provide information to our service providers to get that information out to any of the participants that they may be serving through their organization that are receiving a subsidy from the Atlanta Housing Authority. And of course, we also put the information on our website. So I'll go over the eligibility criteria. I've mentioned some of this before, but applicants must be a member of an AHA-assisted household. They must be between the ages of 16 and 30, either enrolled, accepted, or plan to attend a 2- or 4-year accredited college, university, or technical school. And so the operative word there is accredited. Any school they'd like to go to, as long as it's accredited, we will accept that school. And they must have maintained a minimum GPA, cumulative GPA, or 2.0. When we first started this program initiative, this scholarship initiative, the GPA requirement was 2.5. What we found is that a lot of the students who were either 2.5 or better, they were already receiving scholarship assistance through other programs. And so we thought that we would lower the GPA requirement initially, and then in subsequent years, students must receive or maintain a cumulative GPA or 2.5. Our scholarship program is eligible for renewal up to 4 years, and if you're a continuing scholar, you must be in good standing with your chosen institution, and as I stated earlier, maintain a cumulative GPA of 2.5, and to complete 40 hours of annual community service. And that was a component that I added when I came to the Atlanta Housing Authority. So this is the application process for new applicants. Basically, we start to advertise through various media in December. Applications are sent out electronically as well as through the Postal Service. Applications are due back to us by the close of business on the last day of February. Applications are vetted. We must confirm that all of the applicants are AHA assisted. And then once we do that, we compile a large binder. We buy those applications and we send packets out to our scholarship selection committee. The collection committee has an opportunity to evaluate, score, and rank all of the applications. And then from there, if a student advances to the next phase, which is the interview phase, they're notified with a date for their interview. We also then would send out rejection letters for those students who did not make the cut. We will conduct interviews. The selection committee will make the final selections on who the scholars will be for that particular academic year. And then new scholars are notified and asked to submit their financial information. And we received that by the close of business in the month of Friday, the last Friday in the month of June. I'm getting a little distracted here because I'm getting a phone call from my boss, so if you could hold just a second. I'm on a webinar, national webinar. Can I call you back? Can you let her know that I'm doing a class webinar right now? So once they do that, then we determine award amounts, and then we send UNCF a compiled list of our scholars, the school that they're attending, and the award amounts, and then UNCF makes contact with the scholars and the financial aid offices and distributes the awards. For continuing scholars, the process is a bit shortened, and basically what we're looking for this process is a progress report. We send out a progress report to all of our eligible scholars who are able to renew their scholarship. We send that out. We receive that back. I then have my team to review that information, all of those progress reports, and we make a determination from the information that is provided along with the transcripts if the student is eligible to receive another scholarship award. We meet with the selection committee. The selection committee, we then do determinations based on their FAFSA and their award letters. And we do all of that. By the time it gets to the point of submitting their financial information, it then syncs up with all of the new scholars. So then they're on the same track, and then we're on the same track of getting that information to UNCF as well. So our selection committee, there's only one member of the Atlanta Housing Authority that sits on our selection committee, and currently that's me. We've got 5 members and 1 advisor. According to our agreement with UNCF, we always have a UNCF advisor that serves on the selection committee, and we have also a member of academia, and currently that particular person works in post-secondary education but also came from our local school system. So she knows a lot of the counselors and the teachers and can give better insight on some of the letters of recommendation from either a counselor or a teacher in the school system because she worked at the central office level. We currently have 3 members of the business community on our selection committee, and of course, as I mentioned, 1 advisor from UNCF. As it relates to the business community, it's important for us to have those members as a part of our selection committee because it gives them an opportunity to see this particular initiative and understand that it is very transparent, which is extremely important when you're trying to raise funds, but it also helps to enhance our brand in the community. And we are currently looking to add a representative from the local school district. Our school system has been going through a lot of change over the past few years, and so we've not been able to successfully have someone from the school district serve on the selection committee, but now we have a new superintendent, and so we're looking to add a member from the school district on our selection committee. Our evaluation criteria is really 5 buckets. We're looking at the completeness of the application, the academic performance, and of course that will include the GPA and the SAT and ACT scores, also their leadership abilities, their extracurricular activities, and the strength of their recommendation letters. There are 5 sections, and there are 5 points per section. This is just a little information about, to date, what we've been able to award and also the number of scholars that we've been able to assist. Our smallest scholarship award has been $300. Our largest award is $5,000. This is a need-based scholarship program, and to date, since 2004, we have assisted 99 scholars for a total of $380,000 plus. Although we are a moving to work agency, we're not taking funds from the funds that we receive from HUD to fund our scholarship program. Our scholarship program is really funded mainly through contributions from the Atlanta Housing Authority staff. During our Workplace Giving campaign, we support 2 federations. We support the United Way, and we also support UNCF. So when we are giving during our Workplace Giving campaign, employees are able to designate their dollars any way they like. And so if they give to United Way, they can designate those through their focus areas. If they're giving to UNCF, they can give to our scholarship program, or they can give to the general UNCF fund, or they can give to all. They completely make their designations based on how they like to see their dollars used. We've got 2 accounts with UNCF. One is an operating account and the other is an endowment account. Of course, we're spending no dollars out of our endowment fund. All of the scholarships that we award come out of our operating account. And so when we are putting those dollars into that account from our Workplace Giving campaign, all of the dollars from Workplace Giving go into the operating account. When I get to another slide, I'll talk about how we raise other dollars for the program. And when we do that, I make the designations based on the amount that we're receiving. To date, we've been able to raise $241,625 outside of our Workplace Giving campaign. And this next slide talks about some of our partners, and then a later slide I'll tell you how we've been able to do that, raise those dollars. Of course, UNCF is one of our partners because they are our fiscal agent. It is very important that we partner with the Atlanta Public Schools because this is our main vehicle for getting the information out about our scholarship program. And then, of course, we use our service provider network. We also have a couple of programs that we do. One is our meet and greet that we do with our scholars. Our scholars come to the Housing Authority. We have a small reception for them. This is an opportunity for AHA employees to hear from the scholars and also engage and to talk with them. Many of them attend schools that employees attend, and so they get an interest in those scholars. And many of them want to mentor the scholars, and so we will set up mentoring opportunities for the scholars as well. And then I started in 2008 also a Brighter Futures Day program, and we work through the school system to get the information out about that as well. That is an opportunity for us to bring in high school seniors and juniors to talk about the entire college process, to have folk from the university level to come and talk about financial aid, and also inroads and other organizations to talk about internships and summer employment as well. For our 2014 scholars, we've got 11 new scholars and 9 continuing scholars for a total of 20 for this cohort. Our average GPA for this cohort is 3.13. We've got 5 seniors. We're very excited about that. 2 of our scholars are Posse scholars and 5 are university scholars. When I say university scholar, that means that they're receiving in excess of $10,000 from their chosen university. We made $42,750,000 in awards this year, and we have 6 males and 14 females. And that's important to us because we saw from some years a decline in the male applicants, and this year we had a robust number of male applicants, and they performed extremely well in their interviews, and their applications were also top-notch. So we're very excited about the quality of male applicants and scholars that we have in our program. And these are just a collage of our few successes. We've got students who have gone on to finish college. Demetrius in the center is now living in the Atlanta area as a homeowner and is giving back to the scholarship program. He's a graduate of Emory University. To the left, Sade finished Georgia Southern University and is the first female graduate civil engineering program. We also talk about in the bottom photo in the collage, Eros, who was one of our first scholars, finished Morehouse College and went on to law school at LSU. And then Nadia to the right finished College of Worcester and is now working for the Posse Foundation. In this next slide, we show some of our other successes with some of our scholars. Jamario is now in graduate school at Clark Atlanta University. He finished Bernal undergraduate. Janine has finished Georgia State University and is pursuing a graduate degree in finance. And below, we've got Alexis, who finished Johnson State University, and she is now a cadet in the North Carolina State Highway Program, looking to become a federal law enforcement agent. And that concludes my presentation.
Shean, thank you so much for such a thorough presentation and going through so much information. When I know we didn't give you quite as much time, just because there are so many helpful questions that came up. So I want to pose just a couple of quick questions to you. One is about the number of people that it takes to run your scholarship program. So you talked about where the funds come from, but how many people does it take to run that program?
Literally about 3.
And over what course of time? Is that over the course of the entire year, or is it kind of heavy?
No, it's not, and it's not what they do 100% of their time. So I'm directing the scholarship program. My assistant helps with gathering all of the information, compiling that information, and then when we're doing the renewals and for the continuing scholars, she helps to get all that information together so that we're sending it out to our selection committee, and they're volunteering on the selection committee. So my assistant also engages and interfaces with our account executive at UNCF. So this is not something that she does 100% of her time, nor is it something that I do 100% of my time. And I have another staff member who will assist her when there's a need for that.
And there was a question posed about the private fundraising for the endowment. Whose responsibility is it to kind of work on I mean, it was tremendous to see how much you'd raised. So who's the point person on that?
Well, we've been very fortunate. One of the slides, and I'll go back to it, it talked about that the Atlanta Housing Authority employees are the main contributors, but the second piece here is film production fees. The Atlanta Housing Authority is one of the largest landowners in the city of Atlanta. We own over 1,000 acres. Unlike some of our partners in some of the other cities up north and perhaps in the Midwest, we were able to build out. Now that we don't have those public housing projects, Atlanta has been kind of the second home for film production. So we charge film production companies for using our properties. If you remember the movie Blind Side with Sandra Bullock, that was filmed at our Thomasville community after we had relocated families from there, and that was a huge chunk of money for that. The movie Lottery Ticket with Loretta Devine and Little Bow Wow, that was filmed at Herndon Homes. We got a huge chunk of money from that. We also have received fees from Fast and Furious 5 and a number of other pilots that they shoot here in Atlanta. They're either shooting on our property or using property that we own for staging. So our real estate team would go out and initially meet with the film production companies, and then our legal department would draft up the contract, and then I get involved because they would then write that check to UNCF. They would send that to me, and then I divide those dollars up between our operating and endowment funds.
Got it. That's fascinating, probably to all of us, to think about the creative ways that you have sourced funds for that. So with that, we're at time. So I'm just going to transition to thank yous. Thank you to Abra for setting us up on this platform so we could have two fantastic presentations. Thank you to John and Cam for providing information about how Cambridge is embarking in this work. And thank you to Shean for your presentation from Atlanta Housing Authority. Please let either Abra or myself know if you're interested in presenting on the next webinar, which will be, if you haven't heard already, January 20th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, focused on out-of-school time and summer learning. It was recommended we move that up earlier in the year so that can help inform what housing authorities are planning to do to support students and families over the summer. With that, I'd say thank you for all of your participation in this call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Abra.